Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Apologies for missing yesterday. It's been a heavy flow of news, and I got a bit carried away with activism. Sometimes I forget that I've chosen to spend my time enabling the rest of you to take more action than I ever could alone. Anyway, events of today and yesterday were so linked that I decided to just make it one big happy episode instead of leaving you with a weird cliffhanger. There's still more to go over, which we can hopefully fit in tomorrow. Let's get to it. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. I am forever grateful for your support. If you want to join these awesome advocates, head over to patreon.com/YangDaily. We only need a couple of dollars a month from each of our listeners to keep the movement informed and engaged. First off, Trump signed the COVID relief and federal spending omnibus package late Sunday or early Monday. The good news is that this means $600 checks and the rest of the relief measures are definitely on the way. The bad news is that it takes the pressure off of the Senate to approve the increase in stimulus checks. Yesterday, the $2,000 check amendment passed the House in a roll call vote. The good news is that 44 Republican representatives voted with Democrats to pass it. Joe Biden also announced that he supports the measure. Freaking finally. The bad news is that 130 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 2 independents voted against giving starving American citizens and a starving economy a small slice of the money needed to survive and recover. One of those no votes, I'm sorry to say, was Justin Amash, who has been consistently for exactly this kind of direct cash stimulus throughout the pandemic. He says he opposed it because he opposes items in the omnibus and the manner in which the legislation was crafted. He also wrongly fears inflation. While I can understand his objection, I can't agree with opposing this measure in particular, which is strictly cash aid. I'm disappointed in Justin on this, even though I believe he is standing up for valid principles. You'll find in the links below the record of who voted yes and no on direct aid for Americans. Let them know what you think of their vote and how it will affect their career. Today, Schumer, Bernie, Markey, and Hawley have been initiating motions to bring the bill up for a vote all day long. Bernie and Markey have promised to delay the passage of the defense spending bill until a vote is brought on checks. A number of Republican senators have come out to say that they support the amendment, including Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham. Even Perdue and Loeffler have now publicly committed to $2,000 checks, which means that, by their word, there are enough Republican senators on board to actually pass $2,000 checks for Americans. The problem? Mitch McConnell, of course. Mitch has refused every demand for a vote on the bill today. He gave no reason for denying the vote other than to say that Trump has called for repealing Section 230 and election-related reforms, in addition to the stimulus checks, saying, quote, "Those are the 3 important subjects the president has linked together. This week, the Senate will begin a process to bring these 3 priorities into focus." End quote. This makes his political ploy pretty clear to me. He plans to insist that the checks amendment only be passed if senators also vote to deny workers their right to sue for being placed in reckless danger by employers who flaunted all safety guidance during the pandemic, and agree to whatever authoritarian attempt to undermine democracy he's referring to, basically ensuring the checks cannot pass. Wait a second now, the GOP injecting pork? Weren't they just railing against that? I know, right? Shocking. Then he will blame Democrats for voting against it because shifting blame to Democrats and cutting taxes for the rich seem to be the only 2 planks of the neo-GOP policy platform as far as I can tell. Moreover, as said by Toby on Twitter, quote, "One old white man just blocked a bill to provide $2,000 in assistance to people needing it that is supported by 75% of House representatives, 70% of the population, the outgoing and incoming presidents, and a majority of the Senate." End quote. The only thing he got wrong there is that it's 78% of Americans that support $2,000 checks, according to a new poll linked below. Now, of course, Loeffler and Perdue's support for the bill is almost certainly nothing but theater, as they have been opposing stimulus checks up until now. They almost certainly issued their public support purely to shore up their position with Georgia voters who want these checks and voters who will seek retribution on legislators who oppose Trump's wishes. They didn't even show up to vote and haven't urged McConnell to move. When a reporter asked Perdue if he'd return to D.C. to vote or call on McConnell, he ignored the question. It's an easy calculation for them since they know the bill will never be voted on. Pretend to support what the people want, but do the exact opposite in action. Classic. Not that there should be any reason for them to oppose it anyway. Giving Americans money is the morally, economically, and politically correct move. Yet somehow, the GOP continues to oppose it. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but if there's one thing I know, it's that Mitch McConnell will always do the wrong thing. And that man has somehow been allowed to have the power to decide what laws can and cannot be voted on for the entire country, despite being elected by less than 1% of the population and nominated in a legislative body where 12% of the population elect 60% of the senators. Tell me again how this is representative governance. Don't forget to fax Mitch a letter to let him know what you think of his decision and how you think it will play out for him keeping his majority leader position in Georgia, that being the only thing he cares about, aside from drowning puppies, I assume. So, the federal government is dropping the ball on economic stimulus. How about on the other side of the problem, ending the pandemic? Well, about that. So originally, the Trump administration was promising 100 million doses of vaccine would be delivered by the end of 2020. Sounds great. Then it was reduced to 40 million. Sounds less great. Then 20 million. Okay, now it's clear we won't even get close to that. Why am I not surprised? Worse, that's just the delivery of the vaccine. The number that have actually been administered is closer to 1 million. Why? Because the Trump administration is just handing the vaccines off to states, and the states are handing it off to hospitals and pharmacies and nursing homes with no plan or funding for getting it into the bodies of hundreds of millions of Americans. Basically, despite having almost a year of forewarning, our government is somehow as unprepared to vaccinate the country as they were to test the country, and making the exact same mistakes. This is pathetic and deadly, to the tune of 9/11 every single day. As I've been doing my best to bring a bit of sanity to Twitter conversations, I've been seeing a particularly annoying trend of Democrats claiming that Mitch McConnell in particular, and other Republicans in general, did not legitimately get reelected, so I feel a need to do a PSA. When you refuse to accept losing an election as a legitimate outcome, you do not support democracy. Peacefully abiding when you're outvoted is the entire concept. Writing off any loss as cheating is exactly what the GOP is doing in the presidential election, and why I call them anti-democratic for it. Do not let yourselves fall into the same trap. While gerrymandering and voter suppression do happen, and absolutely need to be reformed, there are legitimately a lot of voters who choose McConnell for a lot of reasons. Not good reasons, in my estimation, but legitimate ones. Whether it's that they think Democrats are worse, or they just care about opposing gun regulations or abortion, or they want their senator to be the most powerful, or whatever. And when you excuse every loss as cheating, how does that help you learn to do better the next time? It doesn't. When you lose, you need to study what happened and figure out how to reach the people who voted against you, or the outcome will not change. Also, don't run McGrath, obviously. PSA over. Do you remember that recent study showing that giving homeless people money not only improved their quality of life but saved the government money? Well, they're looking to expand that to another 200 participants and give $8,500 this time. If you want to help make that happen, they're taking donations for the next 2 days at the link below. I'm happy to announce that Math Movement made the news on a local Georgia TV channel. They got a short segment complete with an overview of their operations, some achievements, and brief interviews. It's attention well deserved. Go Math! Finally, I'm happy to announce that we have another new candidate running for Congress in 2022 who hails from the YangGang. Austin Cyril will be running for U.S. Senate from Utah. His opponent, Mike Lee, voted against cash relief. I assume I need not tell you how a disciple of Yang falls on that issue. Check him out at his Twitter account and website below. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Harass McConnell and the GOP senators to do the right thing for the people and their careers. Thank the representatives and senators who are doing the right thing. Bookmark and share the stimulus poll. Check out Austin. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way. And don't forget to Yang Daily.